Dionne Warwick sat across from Jennifer Hudson on the brightly lit stage, her presence radiating the kind of regal authority that only 6 decades in the spotlight could command. The cameras rolled, the band's jazzy intro faded, and the audience erupted into applause. Dionne, draped in a chic cream-colored suit that shimmered under the studio lights, raised her hand in a graceful wave. Her smile was warm, deliberate, the kind that spoke volumes without words. She knew she was a living legend, and tonight, all eyes were on her. Jennifer Hudson leaned forward with the glowing enthusiasm that had defined her talk show. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her booming voice filling every corner of the studio, "we are honored, truly honored, to have with us tonight one of the greatest voices of all time, a woman whose music shaped generations, the incomparable Dionne Warwick." The audience rose to their feet again, applauding louder, some even shouting her name. Dionne, ever composed, nodded in appreciation. "Thank you," she said smoothly, her voice low and melodic, carrying both gratitude and authority. The conversation began with warmth. Jennifer asked about Dionne's early days, singing gospel in East Orange, New Jersey, her chance meeting with Burt Bacharach, and the first recording sessions that birthed timeless classics like Walk On By and Don't Make Me Over. Dionne leaned into the nostalgia, her story sprinkled with wit and humor, her delivery as sharp as her voice had been decades earlier. "You know," Dionne said, smirking, "when Burt first played me the melody for Walk On By, I told him, honey, this song is going to outlive us both. And look at us, it still plays in elevators, weddings, and breakups everywhere." The crowd burst into laughter, charmed by her ability to weave wisdom with humor. Jennifer's eyes sparkled. "You're a pioneer. You broke barriers for Black women in music, and you did it with elegance and strength. Do you ever sit back and think about the impact you've had on today's artists?" Dionne tilted her head, considering the question. "I don't really think about it that way," she said. "I just did what I loved. If it paved the way, then I'm glad. But I sang because it was in my bones. Music isn't about paving paths, it's about truth." The audience applauded again, clearly moved. For a moment, it felt like the show was gliding effortlessly, a meeting of two powerhouse voices from different eras. But then Jennifer, eager to take the conversation to a spicier level, leaned forward, her tone soft yet piercing. "Now, Miss Warwick," Jennifer began carefully, "you've been in the headlines not just for your music, but for some of your, shall we say, outspoken moments. You don't hold back on Twitter, you've had public feuds, and people still talk about financial struggles and lawsuits from years past. Do you think your honesty has cost you anything?" The studio air shifted. The laughter and applause faded into a heavy, uncertain silence. Dionne's smile faltered just slightly. She leaned back in her chair, narrowing her eyes at Jennifer, her body language signaling that she had just drawn a line in the sand. "Jennifer," she said slowly, her voice honeyed but edged with steel, "I came here to celebrate music, not to rehash gossip columns." Gasps rippled through the audience. A few people clapped nervously, unsure whether to encourage the tension or hope it dissipated. Jennifer, clearly caught between backing down and pressing forward, offered a polite laugh. "I didn't mean it like that," she insisted, but her eyes betrayed her determination. "It's just, the public is curious. They see you as more than an icon. They see you as someone unafraid to speak the truth, no matter the consequences. Don't you think that honesty has shaped your legacy, too?" Dionne straightened, her posture tall, her gaze unwavering. "Honesty has nothing to do with legacy. Legacy is music, songs that touch people, not petty squabbles, not headlines written to sell papers." She paused, her voice dropping into a lower register, each word deliberate. "And I don't have to explain myself to anyone, not you, not them, not the world." The audience broke into a mix of cheers and startled murmurs, the tension on stage impossible to ignore. Cameras zoomed in on Dionne's face, capturing the fire in her eyes. Jennifer, undeterred, leaned closer, her voice rising with passion, ready to push back again. The atmosphere had transformed. What began as a celebration of a legendary career was now teetering on the edge of confrontation. Dionne's regal composure clashed with Jennifer's fiery persistence, and everyone watching could sense it. This interview was about to turn into something unforgettable. As the atmosphere grew thick with tension, Jennifer refused to let go of the moment. She leaned in, her eyes locked on Dionne's, her voice carrying both admiration and challenge. "But Miss Warwick," she pressed, "don't you think the public deserves answers? After everything you've said, after all the opinions you've shared, shouldn't you, at least once, open up fully about what drives you to speak so boldly. Dionne's jaw tightened. For a brief second, she simply sat there in silence, her hands folded neatly in her lap. The camera caught the glimmer of defiance in her eyes, a look she had worn many times before in boardrooms, recording studios, and press conferences. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but sharp. I have given the public 6 decades of my soul, my voice, and my life. That is more than enough. If they can't find answers in the songs I've sung, then perhaps they've been listening with the wrong ears. The room fell silent. It was the kind of silence that seemed to hang in the air like smoke, uncomfortable, heavy, impossible to ignore. A few audience members clapped hesitantly, unsure whether to support Dionne's words or brace for what was coming next. Jennifer, caught between her admiration and her duty as a host, attempted a pivot. Her smile widened, but her tone betrayed the tension. Of course, your music speaks volumes. It's legendary, but I think people also want to know the woman behind that legacy. They want to know your truth, the ups, the downs, the fire that keeps you going. Dionne leaned forward, closing the space between them just enough to make her point land with precision. My truth is in the music. My truth is in every lyric I've ever delivered, every stage I've stood on, every tear I've made an audience shed. I don't owe anyone anything beyond that, and I certainly will not sit here and have my career reduced to ups and downs for the sake of entertainment. Gasps swept across the crowd. A few people began to cheer, siding with Dionne, while others glanced nervously at Jennifer, waiting to see if she would push harder. Jennifer's voice rose, her natural passion taking over. But don't you think conversations like these help people understand the person behind the legend? Don't you think being vulnerable can inspire others just as much as your music has? That was the breaking point. Dionne's eyes blazed with unmistakable fire. Slowly, deliberately, she rose from her chair, smoothing her suit jacket as if she were preparing for a formal exit. She looked at Jennifer directly, her voice commanding yet calm. I will not sit here and be disrespected under the guise of inspiration. I came here to talk about art, about music, about legacy. Not to be cornered, not to be picked apart. The audience erupted into chaos, applause mixed with shocked gasps, some people rising to their feet in support, others whispering furiously as if they couldn't believe what they were witnessing. The cameras followed Dionne as she turned gracefully toward the backstage curtains, her presence so commanding that even her exit felt choreographed, like a queen leaving her throne. Jennifer sat frozen, microphone in hand, her wide smile faltering for the first time. She glanced nervously at the audience, then at the producers off stage, who were already scrambling, headsets buzzing with frantic instructions. Jennifer stammered, trying to maintain composure. Ladies and gentlemen, Dionne Warwick, everybody. She gestured toward the empty chair, but her words sounded hollow, drowned out by the audience's thunderous reaction. Backstage, producers rushed after Dionne, pleading with her to return. But she was unmoved. I've given you what I came to give, she said, her tone firm but not cruel. I will not give you more. With that, she disappeared into the dressing rooms, leaving a wake of stunned silence behind her. Meanwhile, on stage, Jennifer attempted damage control. She turned back to the audience, her signature laugh breaking through the tension. Well, she said, her voice trembling slightly, this is live TV for you. Sometimes the moments you don't plan are the ones everyone remembers. The audience laughed uneasily, clapping out of habit rather than joy. But the electricity in the room couldn't be undone. Within minutes, social media exploded. Clips of Dionne standing up, her powerful declaration, and her dramatic exit flooded timelines. Hashtags like hashtag Dionne walks off, hashtag Warwick vs Hudson, and hashtag respect the legend began trending. Fans divided instantly, some praising Dionne for refusing to be cornered, others criticizing her for being too defensive. Jennifer's supporters argued she was simply doing her job as a host, asking questions people wanted to hear. By the time the show ended, news outlets were already preparing headlines. Dionne Warwick storms off Jennifer Hudson's show, one read. Another blared, Clash of Divas, Warwick vs. Hudson shakes daytime TV. Dionne's team released no immediate comment, letting the moment speak for itself. Jennifer, however, addressed it briefly during a backstage clip later that night. I love Dionne Warwick, she said with a practiced smile. She's a legend. Sometimes conversations get heated, but that's because they matter. I'll always honor her, but no amount of spin could erase what millions had already seen with their own eyes. a fiery clash between two powerhouse women, one unwilling to bow to uncomfortable questions, the other determined to push for vulnerability. It wasn't just an interview, it was a cultural moment, one that would be replayed, analyzed, and debated for years to come. And as the dust settled, one truth became undeniable: Dionne Warwick had walked off that stage not defeated, but defiant, reminding the world that some legacies are too powerful to be defined by anything but their own voice.